Welcome to the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library Museum at The Ohio State University. I'm Jenny Robb and I'm the head curator.
And I'm McGurk, associate curator.
We're so excited to bring you this very special social distance pandemic version of our behind the scenes tour.
Even though we can't all be together here in person, Jenny and I, with the help of some very special guests, are going to do our best to recreate that special behind the scenes tour magic for you. Should we get started?
I'm standing here in the lobby in front of the drawing board of our namesake, Billy Ireland. Those of you who have been here will recognize the familiar echo from our lobby. Billy Ireland was the Columbus Dispatch cartoonist from 1898 until 1935. He did political cartoons and also a weekly feature called The Passing Show that focused on current events. In this particular one that we're showing here from 1916, I love the title panel. All of his title panels were always unique. And they were always very creative. This particular one shows the passing show as each letter is a germ. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you see a family trying to avoid being in range of the sneezes of the father because they don't want to get the grip. Perhaps he should have been wearing a mask.
Here we are right outside of our stacks, aka the vault, aka where we keep all of the awesome stuff in our collection. This is a really special space. At a special collection or an archive, these areas where the collection is held are not open to the public. You can only access this if you work here or if you're on a special behind-the-scenes tour like this one. In order to preserve this stuff forever, this space kind of functions like a refrigerator for artwork. It's entirely climate controlled, meaning the temperature and humidity are kept at a specific level monitored 24 hours a day, and that slows down the natural decay process of the artwork. As a result, it also means that it's pretty chilly back there. So I'm gonna do a Mr. Rogers and put my sweater on before we go in. Also, to help preserve the quality of the artwork, the whole space is lit with non-UV ray lighting. That prevents any kind of extra light damage that you might see from sun exposure. Also, while we're holding original art, Jenny and I are gonna be wearing these cute little Mickey Mouse gloves. These cotton gloves help protect the artwork from the natural oil on our hands. Another important thing to know when taking a tour of this space is that this space is really high security. So when I swipe us through the door, we're going to have exactly 60 seconds to get through. Otherwise, the campus police are called. And this is to make sure that we have extra theft precaution, but it also allows us to have just an extra level of precaution over the climate control, making sure there's no excessive airflow exchange. So if you're ready, we're going to swipe on through and head back there.
Welcome to our collection's storage vault, which you can see we've designed to hold both book and print material, as well as original cartoon and comics art that we house in these wonderful flat files here. We have over 300,000 original cartoons in our collection. But the first thing I want to show you today is from the Milton Caniff collection. Milton was our founding donor, and the reason why this library is here at The Ohio State University. Milton was known as the Rembrandt of the comics, and you can certainly see why. He's best known for the newspaper comic strips Terry and the Pirates, and also Steve Canyon, both of which were masterpieces of visual storytelling. Check out this brilliant cinematic panel designs in this October 19th, 1941 Sunday page. Caniff varied the camera angles from close-ups to wide shots, even bird's eye view panels. He also added visual variety by using silhouettes, as well as blank backgrounds in some of the panels. His use of blacks shows his mastery of chiaroscuro. And finally, of course, a cliffhanger in the last panel, compelling the reader to buy the next day's newspaper.
Here we are in front of our compact storage shelving. This is where we keep our collection of 45,000 books and 67,000 serials. It's called compact storage because we're able to double the amount of rows we have by limiting the aisle space and moving the shelves. Let's see it in action. Here's an example of the kind of thing you might find in one of our 116 rows of books. This is Multicolor, the weekly satirical magazine from Mexico that debuted in 1911 and was chock full of gorgeous illustrations by cartoonists like Ernesto Garcia Cabral. Whether it's a historic periodical like this one, or a recent graphic novel, you're likely to find it here at the Billy Ireland.
Before the pandemic put so many projects on hold, Lucy Caswell and I were co-curating an exhibit of the political and social satire of Walt Kelly's Pogo. We're very fortunate here to have Walt Kelly's archives, and the exhibit will include art from that collection, as well as art from Garry Trudeau's personal collection. Garry, of course, is the creator of the comic strip Doonesbury. And just before the pandemic lockdown occurred in March, Garry's Pogos had arrived. The dailies are in this beautiful custom-made box. He sent Sundays as well. And I'm really excited to announce here tonight that Garry has just informed us that he has decided to donate his whole collection to the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library Museum. So we are so excited and so grateful to Garry for this amazing donation of 75 original Pogo strips. So who better than Garry to talk about this daily from 1962 and its connection to these worthless poo stamps. Garry?
Hi, I'm Garry Trudeau. This is one of my very favorite Pogo strips in the collection because so much of what made Walt Kelly distinctive is present here. The unparalleled draftsmanship honed during his time at Disney, the jazzy, unpredictable dialogue, and the devastating caricatures, such as the canine Castro and the porcine Khrushchev we see here. Uncanny likenesses of world leaders trapped in the bodies of humble farm animals. In this strip, the two cunning communists discuss an inane plot to disrupt the capitalist financial system by flooding the marketplace with counterfeit stamps. Kelly was commenting on the trading stamp craze that had spread across the country. The most famous of these stamps were called green stamps. Kelly's were called puce stamps, and he actually made them available in blocks of 9 to the public. The fake stamps were a gentle send-up of what Kelly obviously regarded as a scam. But having said that, I should add that the beauty of Kelly's whimsical social satire is it really didn't matter if you knew what he was up to. His delightfully unhinged characters were so entertaining in their own right that they were fun to follow even if you didn't know they were brilliant parodies. Kelly worked on multiple levels, leaving no one out of the fun.
Thank you, Garry. We're currently planning to open our exhibit Into the Swamp, the political and social satire of Walt Kelly's Pogo, on January 23rd, 2021. Of course, that depends on how things go with the pandemic. So let's take a look in this drawer here. This is one of my favorites because it contains original art by Charles Schulz. And this is a fairly rare piece. This is an original of a strip called It's Only a Game, which was single panel gags that he drew in 1958. And this is a fabulous original from 1951. You can see it's the old style Schulz. Schulz, of course, known for using actual musical notation in his strips. So if you knew how to play the piano, you could play right along with Schroeder.
There is no such thing as a behind-the-scenes tour of the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum without a stop to worship at the altar of the great Winsor McCay. We are really lucky to have a huge collection of Winsor McCay's original art, not just some of his political cartoons, some work from Hungry Henrietta and from Tale of the Rarebit Fiend, as well as some of his Gertie the Dinosaur originals, but also a very substantial collection of his original art from Little Nemo and Slumberland. This debuted in 1905 and is one of the most quintessential early American comics. You can see in this page some of the things that McCay was best known for. His use of really creative panel designs, his thick outline around characters that almost kind of predicts what he would later do with cell animation. And one of the coolest things about this particular page is this handwriting right over here. This is McCay's actual handwriting, just a little note that he's making to the colorist, indicating where he wants the different colors to go that would be applied during the printing process. So telling them to add a lot of blues and purples since it's a snow scene, things like that. It's really awesome to see these really personal touches on a piece of original art, especially from someone as legendary as McCay. Village Ireland is home to over 40,000 comic books, some of which you can see behind me and some in front of me. We store these in acid-free envelopes and acid-free boxes to protect them. Here are 2 comic book pages that will make any comics fan swoon. This is a 2-page spread from Green Lantern Green Arrow number 76, written by Denny O'Neil and drawn by Neil Adams. This civil rights era comic is considered by some to be part of the defining shift into more socially aware Bronze Age of comics. It shows an African-American character confronting Green Lantern about why he has never once used his powers to fight the racism and discrimination faced by people of color in America. Here's another treasure from our collection, a Curt Swan Superman page. Our CXC special guest, Gene Yang, author of American-Born Chinese, Dragon Hoops, and Superman Smashes the Klan, is a huge Superman fan. Let's see what Gene has to say about this page.
Hey everybody, great to see you all virtually. This is Gene. And through the magic of computers, I can actually look at that page right now. That page from Action Comics number 445, drawn by Curt Swan and inked by Kirk Schaffenberger. So let's take a look. The first thing that I notice is the beautiful varied line. I think that is the work of both of the Kurtz, right? Both the penciler and the inker had to contribute to that. And in panel 3, that Superman, that is the classic Superman. I think most of us, when we think of Superman in our heads, we are thinking of the Curt Swan Superman. That is how classic his drawings are, He really defined Superman as an icon. The other thing that strikes me about this page is that crowd scene in that last panel. Dude, I just got done drawing a book about basketball called Dragon Hoops. So because it's about basketball, there are lots of crowds watching basketball. And I can tell you, I both wrote and drew that book. But when I was drawing it, artist me really hated writer me for writing all those crowd scenes. So I can't imagine what Curt Swan was thinking when he was approaching this crowd scene. I mean, that's pretty intense. And the most impressive thing about it is he doesn't phone it in, not at all. He really puts in the work to get that texture, so it is a believable crowd. I mean, what he could have done had he been a lazier cartoonist was he could have just defined the edges of the crowd and drawn a few heads here or there, but that's not what he does. Then that's why we consider Curt Swan one of the best, right? That is why he is considered one of the classic Superman artists, because he doesn't just draw Superman well, he puts Superman into a believable world. That is something that I'm gonna need to think about next time I have to draw a crowd scene. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me to do this. It was super fun.
The oldest items in our collection date back to the 17th century. This huge scrapbook that I have here contains cartoons, illustrations, clippings, and more, and it was put together during Jane Austen's lifetime. What you're seeing here are 4 color caricatures by the master James Gilray, and they were created in 1804. Even before that, William Hogarth, who's been called the father of modern caricature, was creating proto-comics, and these were sequential morality tales meant to educate the public. Now, Laura Park was a CXC guest in 2017. Let's hear what she has to say about Hogarth's 4 stages of cruelty.
Hi, I am looking at the first stage of cruelty, an etching by William Hogarth, who is a narrative sequential image maker that I like a lot. This series is great. It's really lurid, heavily moralizing in a kind of questionable way. The first stage of cruelty, it's a scene with a bunch of children torturing animals in various degrees. And because he's condensed it all into one frame, it just seems like a psychopath's corner. Like, you got cats being thrown out of windows, birds being blinded, a dog is being impaled. And it reminds me of another of his I like, which is the Gin Lane and Beer Alley, where, a bit like Bruegel, like the scenes of what common people look like are so horrifying. But this image, the thing that about Hogarth that is really interesting to me is that they're kind of like proto-comics, because he usually made images within a series telling a story. Maybe he was thinking less in comics, more in terms of theater or staging, but they function as comics to me in this way where you can still look at them with some humor and admiration. Like, you can still read the story that they're telling now. So happy to look at it.
How gorgeous are these Technicolor rows of manga magazines? Here at OSU, we are lucky to have one of the largest collections of manga outside of Japan, adding up to over 20,000 pieces. Let's hear more about our manga collection from our resident manga expert, Dr. Kay Clopton, who recently received her PhD from Ohio State for a dissertation written specifically about sound effects in manga. Kay?
Thanks, Caitlin. The Billy Island has a wonderful amount of manga and other materials in our manga collection. We have, on top of the manga that we have Sugoroku, we have, which are game boards, we have Emaki scrolls. These are story scrolls that are the precursors to manga, and we even have a cosplay costume from a 90s shoujo anime. But one of the coolest things we have is actually an art piece from Tezuka Osamu, the godfather of manga. It's actually an unprinted piece of his that was scoured in the streets of Japan, featuring a young man who's being bullied for shining shoes of US servicemen during the US occupation. The reason why I like this piece so much is because of all the sound effects. There's the plane that's flying overhead that's going Gion, and you also have the sound of his father shining someone's shoes, and he's shining so hard, goshi, 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 that he actually shines the guy's boot away. And this is some of the stuff that's just in our collection. I think it's wonderful. I can't say enough about it.
One of the greatest resources we have here for our researchers is over 6,000 boxes of archival material. We have here kind of a random selection that we pulled out, highlighting some various collections. Over here, check out these fan letters, including some hate mail, as well as sympathy cards, written to cartoonist Lynn Johnston, the creator of For Better or For Worse, when she wrote the death of the family dog Farley into the strip. Oh, and this is Will Eisner's high school yearbook, for which he did the illustrations. We have 3 childhood sketchbooks by the creator of Prince Valiant, Hal Foster. This one was made when he was only 11 years old. We have a large collection of Rube Goldberg's bronze sculptures. Here's a letter written by Robert Crumb to which he affixed a lock of his own hair back in the 1960s. This is a Civil War era envelope depicting Abraham Lincoln in a political cartoon. This is a spicy fan letter written from literary great John Steinbeck to cartoonist Milton Caniff about his feelings for the character the Dragon Lady from Terry and the Pirates. And speaking of Caniff, one of the strangest items in our collection, this is Caniff's life mask. Lastly, a bronzed baby shoe belonging to Eldon Dedini, the great Playboy and New Yorker cartoonist. One of the largest new collections we've received is the Jay Lynch collection. Jay was generous to donate us his entire estate, which included all of his archival materials, his original art, and an amazing run of fanzines from the underground cartoonist era. These fanzines were created by people like Jay Lynch, Skip Williamson, and even Art Spiegelman as a teenager back in the 1960s.
Caitlin, do you remember when Art Spiegelman was here and he showed us how he made this with a hectograph?
Yeah.
It was literally a plate of gelatin, like unflavored, brackish, clear brownish jello. And if you worked with one of the same kind of carbons you used for a rexograph, the kind that was purpling for the test, you could make a reverse, you could make a copy They would then reverse copy on the gelatin, and then you could put pieces of paper against the gelatin. Enough of the purple dye would come off to make some kind of copy. And like I said, you can use red and blue and other second colors to a degree, but it wasn't good for too many copies. And the way you knew your print run was done is you'd like apply this paper to the sticky Jello, pull it off, but after a certain number of copies, the Jello would come off onto the paper, and it was getting a little gross, and you knew that was the end of your print run. But it was a pleasure to be able to get anything actually printed, even this way.
The comic strip Luther, created by Brunswick Brandon Jr., gave a voice to kids of color during the Civil Rights Movement and was one of the first mainstream comic strips created by an African-American man. Brandon covered topics ranging from social and racial justice, flaws in our education system, and the experience of being an inner-city kid. Let's hear from Barbara Brandon-Croft, Brunswick Brandon's daughter and the creator of Where I'm Coming From, about her father's work.
Hi guys, thanks for inviting me. I love to talk about my dad and his comic strip Luther. I love the collection you have here at the Billy Ireland because he selected them. And they told the story that he wanted to tell, and that is of what is it like for a kid to grow up in an underserved community and still have hope. The one that comes to mind is the one when you see Luther in hardcore climbing up on a car to have a talk. And then by the time of their short exchange, the car is completely stripped. No wheels, no lights, no doors, no windows, and none of it fazed the boys. I mean, this is the kind of social commentary that my dad did best. There's so many more to see. Hope you check them out.
The Bill Watterson collection is one of our most popular. It includes almost all of the original art from his phenomenally successful newspaper comic strip, Calvin and Hobbes, including examples of everyone's favorite alter ego, Spaceman Spiff, the superhero Stupendous Man, and his nemesis, Babysitter Girl, poor Rosalind, and of course classics of Calvin and Hobbes careening through the woods on a wagon or a sled. We also have Bill's color work from the Calvin and Hobbes books. Now, Raina Telgemeier, the creator of Smile, Guts, and many other bestsellers, is a huge fan of Calvin and Hobbes. Let's hear what she has to say about this very unique 1991 Sunday strip. What we're showing here is Bill's original, as well as the color proof. Raina?
Hey Jenny, thank you for having me here today. I chose to talk about this comic strip because it's one of the examples where Bill Watterson took a concept and used it as a pun, but then went backwards and used it to talk about like art and the way that we see and the way that film works. And it was one of the first times that I encountered such stark contrast of black and white on the comics page. And that sounds funny because most comics, at least the ones that I was reading, were in black and white. So this just showed like a level of artistry that I hadn't seen elsewhere. And it really set the stage for me to appreciate black and white comics going forward in my life. And that's what I ended up making for the first half of my career too. So inspiring, really fun to look at, and also a great punchline at the end.
Thank you, Raina. I love that Sunday strip. Now let's check in with another big fan of Calvin and Hobbes, Mo Willems. Mo is the author of Knuffle Bunny, the Elephant and Piggy series, and Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, as well as many other amazing children's books. Are you there, Mo?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here in the cabinet room of my high school years. Very
Why,
excited.
yes.
Every one of those cabinets is filled with embarrassing things that I did in my high school years. And
if you come to the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library Museum, we'll show them all to you.
Absolutely. That's why they have all those pressure locks and the temperature and all that. They want to retain the smells and the textures of those terrible, terrible years.
Well, Mo, this is reminding me of when you came here. I think it was back in 2016. and
Great
got a
trip.
tour of our behind the scenes vault here. As I recall, I think we exhausted you. I think we spent about 3 hours back here looking at art.
It was amazing. We were there. It was Cher was there. It was Trix. Trix was there. He was there, and also Hilary Price. And we got really excited about seeing different stuff. And then one thing led to another, and we ended up with all of those cat drawings.
Cleavon.
Yeah, the Caliban stuff. Yeah, it was amazing. Really, really great.
Let's talk about Calvin and Hobbes. Do you have a favorite strip?
I do have a favorite strip. What I would say about Calvin and Hobbes is I am grateful that I grew up in a time where Calvin and Hobbes was being made. Every day I would open up the paper and you could see the strip, which started out great, just become more and more innovative. I mean, that first Sunday where the dinosaurs come out and you've broken the grid, that was a seminal moment. And it felt like it was a live performance in a way, because you had no idea it was coming, and then you picked up the paper and there it was. So my favorite strip is a strip that's got a very sort of Schultzy feel to it. It is a daily strip that I actually saw reenacted by an actual kid on my block about a week ago. Calvin is walking, suddenly trips, falls, and then recovers by going, ta-da, as if he meant to do it. I literally saw a little girl in our neighborhood do that exact same thing like a week ago.
Well, as it happens, I have that strip right here. Would you like to see it?
Oh, very, very much so. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna really get in here. I'm gonna move my mic. Yeah. Wow. Great. Yeah, let's go. Stay in that last panel there. I want to see the little whiteouts of that hand. I just love how, you know, simple and easy are opposites, and the precision that you need to make it look like the ink is still wet. I mean, it really looks like this drawing was just made. Oh, can we go into the first panel, please? I feel like one of those movies, Closer. Closer. We want to, let's see their DNA. Yeah, oh, look at the shoes. What's so great too that Calvin has, I try to do this sometimes with Piggy, is just the expression with absolutely no mouth. Just let the eye do the work. I sometimes just take out her mouth entirely, and I think it's funnier. Great. Great. All right. Can we go in? I want to see look at the word trip. Look at that. I think writing is drawing. I love lettering. Wow. Yeah. And look at that hand. A little tongue. What's great is look at his eyes. He hasn't really changed. He's not panicked. But he's surprised in a really funny way. Great. Wow. The little stars and the Pollocky blops. Oh, and his pencil. Look at the pencil line. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Yeah, he's really just using the pencil to rough out. He's not inking the pencil. That's just a loose guide. I don't think I could do that. My pencils, they give me a lot of guidance. Wow. Great. And look how the ta-da is almost the exact same lettering as the trip, right? There's just a continuity there. Oh, man. How big is it? Can you give me a...
It's just about, actually, I'll put my hand in the shot.
Yeah, wow.
That'll give you some perspective.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he did not draw big.
No.
That's
Even
a
his Sundays aren't very big.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, it helps though. I can see because that nib, you get that really, it feels like a super thick line, but it's just a small drawing. Yeah, wow. That's cool. Wow. Great. Wow. Thank you. That is amazing.
So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And I want to say congratulations. I understand you have an HBO special coming out.
Yes, there's a comedy. Thank you. I will plug my comedy special on HBO Max. Don't let the pigeon do story time. And it stars a bunch of people from SNL and the state and whatnot. And we turn my books into sketch. And we have animated on top of the performers. So there's a lot of really fun drawing in the special itself. So
that sounds awesome. I can't wait.
Awesome. Always great to see you. I can't wait to see you in person again. And thanks for
Thanks a lot, Mo. Bye-bye.
Take care. See you. Bye.
Here are two exciting recent acquisitions donated by MacArthur Genius Award winner Alison Bechdel. Both of these pieces are featured in our current exhibit, Ladies First, A Century of Women's Innovations in Comics and Cartoon Art. This page from her award-winning graphic novel, Fun Home, and an original from her comic strip Dykes to Watch Out For, which premiered in alternative weekly newspapers back in 1983. Alison's work was immensely influential on an entire generation of queer cartoonists who came after her. Let's hear from an artist whose life was greatly impacted by Alison's work, Rhymes with Orange creator Hilary Price.
This Dykes to Watch Out For reminds me of a story. It's the early 1990s, and I'm living in the Bay Area of San Francisco, and I have some straight out-of-town relatives coming, and I haven't come out to them yet. But I take them to the Castro, which is the historically gay district of San Francisco, and we're walking down the hill, and by my count, there may be about a half dozen queer women walking past us, and then my relatives see this woman with short hair and a leather jacket, and they're like, a lesbian. So what I love about Dykes to Watch Out For, both in this strip and over the course of the series, is that Alison Bechdel disrupts this myth of a monolithic, homogenous lesbian society. And if you look at Holidays on Ice, you'll see 9 fully fledged characters. And they have different body shapes, they have different hair, they have different lips, they have different noses, and most importantly, they have different agendas. On an artistic and humor level, one of the things that I love about Dykes to Watch Out For is, in addition to the representation of the characters and the really snappy dialogue, Alison drops little Easter eggs in the panels, and they're her little side commentary as an artist. And so the one I want you to check out is the one in Mad Women Books on the shelves. It's the Harry Potter one. You don't want to miss it. Thanks, everyone.
Speaking of new acquisitions, last year we acquired a small collection of the work of Oliver Harrington. Harrington was a brilliant editorial cartoonist who worked for black press newspapers like the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier. He's best known for his series Bootsy. He left the United States to escape racism here and moved to Europe, eventually settling in communist East Germany. He did work for the Communist Party newspaper, the Daily World, like this editorial cartoon, Welcome to the Great Watergate Swamp, published in 1973. And this is one of the most interesting pieces in the collection. It's a rough depicting 2 police officers who have cornered a small black child, and they're saying, "We could say he threatened us with a knife, if we had a knife." We don't know if this cartoon was ever published. For our final items tonight, we have a very special treat. In this drawer are selections from the Richard Thompson collection. Richard was an incredible cartoonist, and he very generously gave us a large selection of his work before he passed away, including originals from the comic strip Cul-de-sac, which he drew from 2004 until 2012. Bill Watterson was a huge admirer of Richard's work. Let's hear what he has to say.
The comic strip Cul-de-sac was cut short by Richard Thompson's Parkinson's disease, so it's probably not as well known as it deserves to be. Richard died in 2016, and we lost an absolutely brilliant cartoonist. His whole career is really just wonderful to study. I admire his drawings no end. In this strip at Billy Ireland, the delightfully uncuddly grandmother, she likes to throw deviled eggs at cars. She's preparing what sounds like an awful dish for Thanksgiving as Alice opens the door and apprehensively walks the length of the kitchen, fearing an encounter with the grandmother's dog, who's the size of a bear. This is all in one lovely panel. And the thing I noticed about this is that two things I always hated drawing were architecture and furniture. But here Richard's depicted a cluttered kitchen packed with cabinets and appliances, and it looks like he had a blast. It's sure fun to look at as a result, and it's a real rebuke to the way I conceived of the problem. Also notice the blobby ink line. Richard has so much control over the runniness of his medium that he doesn't even need to control it. His line just revels in the inkiness of ink. He learned a lot from Ronald Searle, and I think he's up there with Harriman and Schultz when it comes to the beauty of his pen work. Like most of my favorite comic strips, the humor of Cul-de-sac has little to do with punchlines. Richard's eye was omnivorous. Everything he wrote and drew was very closely observed, but his eye is appreciative and it's affectionate, especially when it comes to people. His quirky characters take a while to get to know. They're not the stock types that cartoonists often use as a shorthand in this abbreviated medium. I especially love the central character of Petey, whose sensitivities are completely overwhelmed by the world. I would never have thought of a character who abhors any sort of action, but it's a wonderfully perceptive portrayal, and it's empathetic, and it's very funny. Richard had a unique and whimsical view of the world, and it just permeates every word and line that he drew. And that's the beauty and fun of his work. I think Cul-de-sac was a very unexpected late flowering of a medium that is sadly disappearing with the end of newspapers. So thank you, Richard. We miss you.
Hope you enjoyed that behind-the-scenes look at our vault. Now we're in the Lucy Shelton Caswell Reading Room, named for our founder, who started it all back in 1977 with Milton Caniff. Because OSU is a land-grant institution, that means that all of the libraries at Ohio State, as well as the special collections like the Billy Ireland, are completely open to the public. So this is the room where any of you watching right now can come in and request materials to look at. We're also a non-circulating collection, and what that means is that unfortunately you can't take a Winsor McCay original home with you for the night, but you can make an appointment, come in and look at some of your favorites, and hopefully discover some new ones. Due to the pandemic, we have some safety precautions in place for social distancing as well as limited hours. You can visit cartoons.osu.edu to learn more.
Hi, I'm Ann Drozd, Museum Coordinator here at the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library Museum. We hope that you enjoyed the tour with Jenny and Caitlin, and thanks to our special guests for making this such a wonderful experience. After being closed for many months, we're happy to welcome visitors back to the museum. For more information and to make a reservation, visit cartoons.osu.edu. And here's a sneak peek of what you'll see when you visit. In the Beeler Gallery, we have a small display of Calvin and Hobbes. In the Mort Walker Gallery, we have the Permanent Treasures exhibit featuring highlights from our collections. The Friends of the Libraries Gallery features Making Faces, portraits by John Cash. In the Robinson Gallery, we have Ladies First, a century of women's innovations in comics and cartoon art. Both Ladies First and Making Faces are planned to be on display through November 29th, 2020. Hope to see you soon.